All right, guys, so I think this will be a pretty quick video. Your science unit today is a lot of review. We're just talking about changing states of matter. So we know that our three states are a solid, liquid, and a gas, and we're just going to kind of review what happens when it changes from one state to another. So when we're talking about solids, liquids, and gas, remember that we're talking about their particles, right? So when something is a solid, those particles are really, really close together. There's like no room to move at all. When they're a liquid, they're a little further apart and they can move a little bit. And when they're a gas, they're much spread apart. And so they can move and bounce a lot based on the container or shape that they're in. So as things are going from a solid, liquid, or a gas, your number of particles are staying the same. They're just either spreading out or they're getting more condensed, but the actual number of particles does not change. That is staying the same the entire time. You're just either heating it up so the particles get more room, or you're condensing it and the particles then get less room and are more squished together and become that solid. So when we're thinking about things changing, they're also called phase changes. And so it's the physical change from one state to another. So let's say we have water and we take that water and we put it in a place where it's really cold temperature. After a while, as it gets colder, those particles are being condensed together and they're going to end up, even though they're the same particles, they're going to end up frozen and they will be in that solid shape, right? Whereas let's say we have chocolate chips, right? They're solids. But if I put heat to them, then that heat is going to make the particles get farther apart and we're going to end up with that chocolate melted saucy deliciousness. And so temperature is really what's going to cause things to change from one to another. When we have gas, I think that's the one that people have the hardest time seeing. Like we think about, okay, when we boil water, then the water goes up as steam and that's gas. Okay, so we think about that a little bit, but we don't think about it as much as when gas is going to something else. So think about that when you're thinking about condensation, right? So you have a cold glass of water and you're sitting outside on this really hot summer day, and before you know it, your whole cup of water is covered in glass. Your whole glass of water is covered in water droplets, right? There's just water everywhere. So that gas that was coming from the evaporation is being heated up with the air and it's coming all over your cup as that condensation there. So that's kind of an example of how that can change. So when matter is going through condensation, the temperature is usually going to decrease. But when you're going through something boiling, you're going to think about temperature increasing. And if the temperature of a liquid is raised high enough, that's when you're going to get a gas. So when you change properties, the mass of the object does not change. Sometimes we think it looks like it, especially when we think of gas, because we think the gas just disappears. But it doesn't. The mass of the object stays the same. You have the same particles, you have the same mass. So yes, it's going to feel like maybe it didn't, but if you do a science experiment where, say, you put 3 ice cubes in a beaker and you weigh it and then you put it in a microwave and you melt it and then you weigh it again, you're still going to have the same mass. So the weight doesn't change as the states change. So just going over our main points here, melting and freezing are different, right? So melting is going to happen when heat is added to the substance and you're going to go from a solid to a liquid, or from a liquid to a gas. Freezing is going to happen when the heat gets removed from a substance, and so it gets cooled down and you're going to go from a liquid to a solid. Vaporizing and evaporating versus and boiling versus condensing. So we've got a couple of different things that happen there. So with vaporizing and evaporating, that's happening when the heat is added to a liquid and liquid particles are escaping and becoming gas. The gas creates bubbles in the liquid and that's what causes the liquid to boil. So those things all go hand in hand, whereas condensing happens when the heat is removed from a gas and so it starts changing to a liquid. So condensing is going to be when that heat is taken out and it becomes a liquid. And how does changing this state of a substance affect its mass? It does not. the mass will stay the same. So that's about all of it, guys. Short video today. I hope it helps.